All right, Matthew, welcome to episode 27 of the Performance Advantage podcast. We're talking Matt's trip to Eurobike and tapering for endurance. This is especially topical because I have a 100k run on this weekend.
Yikes.
Matt, Eurobike, man, that sounds exciting.
Yeah, Eurobike. It's the biggest trade show in the cycling industry. It's huge. It is huge. So that's why I went, because all the companies are there, and it's a good opportunity to show what I've been doing with the brake power meter.
Yeah.
Which is what I did.
Awesome. So there are consumers?
Yeah, so there are 3 business days where you have to actually apply to go. You send in your business card, what your business is, and they approve you. Then say, okay, yeah, you're in the business, you can come. That's open only to trade visitors.
Okay, so that's like the negotiating deals, people licensing products, which is what you were hoping to do. So that's the actual like commercial business side of things.
Yeah, sure. It's a lot of like OEM discussions talking about, I'm going to supply these parts on these bikes for you at this price, and then the person that wants to get the parts then goes to their next meeting and tries to get them cheaper. So it's a lot of that going on. And then there's one day, so there's 3 business days which are full on, and then there's a consumer day which is open to the public. That's the 4th day, which I was long gone by then because I was wrecked.
Yeah. Oh wow. Okay. So it's definitely all for negotiations. And like, what was the big takeaway for you? Like, what would our listeners be super interested in hearing?
I think
all of your non-disclosure agreements.
Yeah. All this stuff that I probably shouldn't say would be really exciting. So I'm not going to talk about that, unfortunately. But the first time I went to a trade show, which was Interbike, I went to one as a kid because my family's in the bike business. And then I went back to Las Vegas in 2016, and I was, there was the first time I showed the brake power meter to anyone. We had just gotten our patent, and it was time to start talking about it to see what we could do. I was blown away by the amount of stuff there, like companies showcasing new things. You get to see like totally new products that you wouldn't see. I thought that was super cool because you don't see it anywhere else. It's all in one place. After a while, and you go to these things for a few years, you start to realize, well, actually, there's not a whole lot of new stuff being shown. Yeah. The new stuff trickles out really, really slowly. So I think for the first time you go to a trade show, it's super cool to see everything in one place. And that's probably the coolest part, to see all these new products and all the hype around them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And what, if I asked you for 3 products that you were like blew your mind or you like hadn't seen anywhere before, what would they be?
Okay, let me think about this. Well, so especially in Europe, e-bikes are the thing.
Yeah.
So in the USA and New Zealand, where most of our listeners are from, e-bikes haven't really taken off, but all you have to do is go to Europe, and especially Eurobike, to see what a big business e-bikes are. E-bikes are the future of cycling sports, whether you're an e-bike hater or not. And it was really cool to see some of the new products related to e-bikes. And one of the coolest ones is anti-lock brakes.
Yeah,
which is really cool because e-bikes are so fast and brakes are pretty powerful these days, and no one really understands how to use a front brake, especially at a beginner level, which is most of who's buying the e-bikes at the moment. So anti-lock brakes for the front brake have been in development for a number of years. Now there's a bunch of companies that are really close to offering a commercial anti-lock front brake.
Wow.
So for me,
yeah,
that was cool. That was cool to see.
You're getting a bit of a crossover from like cars and motorbikes into
definitely
e-bikes.
Well, you go into the e-bike room and some of the biggest brands are Bosch, who's one of the biggest motor suppliers in electric motors of everything.
Yeah.
Appliances, tools,
and
e-bikes, and they're heavily involved in the automotive industry. And Continental, who's huge in the automotive industry.
Yeah.
So you go. This is what you see first in the e-bike room: is these massive, massive companies, backed by the auto industry, now getting into bicycles.
Oh, wow. That's
And-
only going to accelerate the curve, the development curve with that kind of infrastructure and funding.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And there's, e-bikes aren't cheap. So, yeah, it's a great market to be in, especially over there. I don't know when we'll see that in New Zealand and the USA, but I think the market demands are a little bit different in each place than Europe. But, you have big hills in Europe. Everyone bikes to and fro, or a lot of more people do, like to the store or whatever. And you kind of want an e-bike just to make it easier to get up those hills.
Yeah.
So it makes a lot of sense over there.
Okay.
So that was really cool. And then, to be honest, I kind of stopped taking notice of most new things because, so first off, most bike brands, or at least the biggest bike brands, they don't come to Eurobike anymore or
like
to any of the trade
Specialized
shows.
and Giant and...
Yeah, they're not there. Trek's not there. It's actually because it costs so much money to exhibit at these big trade shows. So it's actually cheaper for them to bring the media and everyone else to them at their own private launch at a big resort somewhere. And that's what they do.
Yeah, I've seen that. Ah,
Yeah,
so that's how the cost... Because I was like, I've seen... You'll go on YouTube if you into cycling, triathlon, endurance sport, which you are because you listen to this. What will pop up will be GCN, like the Global Cycling Network or the Global Triathlon Network or the Global Mountain Bike Network videos. And they're always, like their job is to exhibit all the new products. And they'll be out in the, French Alps and like on a specialized day. Like that must cost a fortune. But they've actually found out that, so that's cheaper than putting a big...
Yep. From what I've heard, and I could be, off by a mile, but just to set up an exhibit at Interbike, like what the big companies will do, where they take up a lot of an area, just to set up an exhibit and pay the trade show to be able to spend more money on your exhibit, it's like $200,000 or something like that.
Yeah.
Just to have the space. And then you need to build it and make it look nice and bring all your product, all your employees.
Well,
it's crazy.
I exhibited with the Selming shoes, which I was distributing throughout New Zealand, at a very small, fitness expo in Auckland, New Zealand. It was, a couple days. And I mean, that was like $2,500. And that was for a small booth and a small show, not a multinational. So I could definitely see how if you're taking up the center of one of the big rooms and you have got like a block long stall and you need the different power, we were super basic. They charge you for everything. If you want an extra wall, if you want a divider, if you want power, if you want internet, like everything costs money. If you want different carpet, it's, and that was just a 2-day show in Auckland, not like a week-long event in where was it? Switzerland.
It was in Germany on Bodensee, the Lake Constance. So really nice areas.
Yeah.
And it's not cheap. Trade shows are a business. So the Eurobike show is owned by, I get maybe like the council or something, or the people that own this big building, which is where they make the Zeppelins. It's close by there, where the those things that float in the air, it's a Zeppelin. What are they? I forget.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Like there's a big, massive thing that just floats in the air and does advertising, almost like a balloon, but actually underneath is this little pod that people are in. Oh, and they just float around really slow. What is it called in English?
I can't remember.
Yeah, someone write in and tell us, please, because
Blimp? Is it
Blimp? Yes. Yeah. So that actually, where those were invented and made, there's a big museum there and everything.
The Hindenburg. Was that made there? That was like the world's biggest blimp, and it blew up because it was too big.
Okay, like the Titanic of blimps.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Yes. So that is
one of the ones I was interested in. Sorry to interrupt you. Was the chainless bike.
Yeah.
I saw that and I was like, wow, that looks a lot different than what I'd pictured in my head. and it seems like it would work.
Yeah, it's actually really cool. So I went there and I was, chatting up with the guys that made it, and I think they were a bit surprised how popular it's getting. And because, okay, so derailleurs on a bicycle are probably the stupidest thing that you could have. Like a dangly thing that costs $500 that dangles your chain and moves it around these external cogs. And it's just exposed to the elements. Sticks are going to get stuck and break it. They are dumb. I've hated them forever, but there's no real solution unless you get a gearbox. And they're a little bit slow. So this driven thing is a drive shaft that's driven, and it's made by Ceramic Speed, who make super high-end bearings. So it shifts electronically, and it kind of goes along this big pie plate with gears on the back. And it's not like a traditional cassette. It's actually flat. And it's really cool, and they've developed a mountain bike one. Works electronically, super smooth, and, claimed to be the most efficient thing out there. It's awesome. That is a real innovation, which you don't see often in the bike industry. A lot of it's just small changes and
very incremental things, like trying to, Shimano Di2 came out where it was the same, just it was still a wire from your gear shifter to the derailleur, but it was electronic, so there's less mistakes in tensioning and all of that. And now then you got into Wi-Fi changing, and but this is big. Like, this is an actual redevelopment of the whole drivetrain.
Yeah. So there was actually for some reason the word is escaping me. It must be the jet lag or something. But drive shaft kind of gears a long time ago, like drive shaft bikes. So they've existed from long ago, but they were kind of just not that good.
Yeah.
And they still exist, and there were some others being showcased. But this is real innovation. And this is actually the stuff that excites me, is actual changes, which you don't see often. And it's really, refreshing. So I'm really hoping that makes it. I would love to try that. And, yeah, it's very cool.
Yeah, and what about some of the, more hyped up stuff? So I saw Wahoo had introduced some, which would have maybe excited you, some sort of mountain biking thing. I saw that on your Instagram page. I saw it on YouTube. Yeah.
So Zwift has a mountain bike Zwift, and I went and checked that out. That was interesting. You put your front wheel on this little plate, and it can sense your steering. So it's not sensing leaning like you actually do on a mountain bike. It senses steering. As of right now, it doesn't have any braking input, which was what I was really interested to see.
Yeah.
You kind of just need to stop pedaling, and, you bounce off a couple trees as you're going. So I think that's getting there, and it might take a few years.
Was it a vibration plate?
No.
There's no sort of haptic feedback.
It just a plate there that measured you turning your wheel. So your wheel could kind of flop around. I think it'll get there. That's really cool. But then Wahoo, they introduced the Kicker bike. I think that's what it's called, which is cool because we've used the Kicker a lot, and we love the Kicker. It's really cool. But this is its own bike. And what they had done is they set it up with this other company from Australia who does helmet cam footage. And then you can sync that with your Wahoo, your Kicker.
Yeah.
And so this was mountain bike footage, and you can actually touch the brakes, and it slows down the video and makes more drag on it. So it's actually, you can't steer it like you can with the Zwift bike, but you can brake, which I thought was awesome. And you're on a real course.
Like, if you're traveling to a race, I know a lot of people were using that service for the recent 70.3 World Half Ironman World Champs over the weekend. Very technical climbing course, very different to any other sort of half Ironman course people encounter, and they were all on their indoor trainers just watching this course.
Users just upload the video, and I assume they must upload some sort of power data so that you can get a really good sense of, syncing up
You'd have to have a GPX,
with the Kicker.
Yeah.
So maybe it's using just elevation profile.
Yeah.
But yeah. That was really cool. It's really cool to see the braking stuff. So I was really, obviously, love braking. So I was really interested to talk to them about that. And I think that has legs for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
we'll see where that goes.
After being there, and this is something I've just pondered away as you do on a long run or something. Where do you see the indoor biking going? Like there are the developments from when, I mean, we got the very first kicker about 5 years ago now, I think, and it blew our mind. You know, Zwift wasn't even out or just sort of come out.
2015, I think.
And now people there's full on like online world championships, which are streamed live on, you know, national and international sports television. The rights.
Well, there's Zwift Pros, right?
Full on. There's from Palmy. Alex West is a pro sponsored by Canyon, Zwift, everything. And yeah, that now they're saying you don't even need to put your bike on this trainer. Like there is a Wahoo bike, and now we're going to do turning. Like you can ride any course in the world with live course data and course fields. You know, field of vision. It's it must be the future.
Yeah, all you have to do is kind of look to other areas of life, and you know that VR is the next big thing. We've been talking about VR since I was a baby, right? So VR has been the future since forever.
That's virtual reality. Yep.
Yeah, virtual reality where and you know, last year at Eurobike they showed this virtual reality mountain bike, and I think people are getting a bit dizzy. And we saw one at Crankworks actually too. That was really cool. But so there needs to be some way for people to kind of maintain their sense of balance when they're doing it. But virtual reality is what everyone wants to get into. Exercising virtually is blowing up. So exercising online and communicating with people from the comfort of your home. You don't have to get wet. You don't have to get cold. You do it right in your lounge. Like it is the future. So besides e-bikes, that's probably one of the biggest things blowing up in the industry.
Isn't it crazy? Like market. E-bikes, electronic cycling, and then you've also got running power. So like the integration of further technologies and measurement systems, and then you've got virtual exercising.
I mean, you're actually exercising though.
The actual cycling and running can't be left behind, but or maybe it can. I don't know what the multi-directional treadmills are developing, where that's going to lead to. But especially cycling, like that's getting left behind. Like road cycling, the amount more car, especially in New Zealand, every single person has about 3 cars that they like to drive at the same time in the cycle lane. People are like, it's too dangerous. I'm not gonna.
It is too dangerous. This is the most dangerous country to ride in my opinion. And you know,
so to race on a course that you can actually see up, you know, Mount Ventoux or something, why would you not? These bikes adjust themselves based off a gradient, resistance, braking, turning. Yeah,
and you can coach via this way. You know, as coaches, we can work with athletes electronically on their kicker bikes. I think like it is the future. That definitely has legs. Because you're still exercising. And we know that you can get faster by exercising on a stationary trainer. Like, it makes sense. And we can measure pretty much everything we need to. You don't have to get cold. You don't have to get wet. You can do it any time of day. It's easy to get motivated to do it. You can listen to what you want to listen to. You don't have to worry about anyone else. Definitely the future. Definitely. But that doesn't mean that real mountain biking and real road cycling are going to get left behind.
No, mountain biking especially not, because you just can't get that experience yet. Sure, road cycling is going to maintain. It's been around for 100+ years. But I don't know, with road cycling and how busy the roads are getting, it's just the road feel on these new indoor trainers is just incredible. And then you can ride with your friends, and I don't know, just how busy our lives are now to get all your kit on, to have to change a flat tire. That's the thing, we're still changing flat tires and 2019.
Breaking
derailers, breaking chains, servicing our bikes. None of that exists.
Yeah. It's definitely the future. I don't think like the normal biking and biking outside and being out in the sun and enjoying the weather, whether it's good or bad, that's not going anywhere. But I do think we'll definitely see a rise in the indoor cycling market. And the e-bike market just makes things easier and more fun.
Yeah. All right. What else, Matt? How was it for you? Can you say anything? Like, productive trip?
Yeah, it was super productive. So, in terms of the brake power meter, I'm just going to continue to focus on what to do with the information because that is my value in this space. So I'm going to focus on that. And all I really had to do is, I had some big meetings that I was really looking forward to. And yeah, it really made the whole trip really valuable in one sense, giving me affirming my direction and where I'm headed with my product and my solution and my app, and also just helping companies to develop better products because they don't have brake power meters yet. So it still kind of blows my mind. I did find out about a few companies that have developed their own, maybe more simple technology, kind of like a brake power meter, to do their own in-house testing, which is really cool because they told me that in-house testing totally changed the development of their product. So I was like, okay, thank you very much. That's really good information to me because that's exactly what I can do with the brake companies is help them to develop their product because they don't have what you have. So yeah, it was just a really great trip, way worth my personal investment, and I know what to do.
Awesome. Well, thanks for the update, Matt. And if anyone has any questions about Eurobike, fire them in. I have to say you were a good follow on Instagram during that time. You shared a lot of cool stuff. I like how you asked, what do you want to see? And then you took photos of it for people. Mainly burritos or...
No, kebabs. There's a lot of good kebabs in Germany. Love it. And, good grilled pork as well. So share that and... Yeah, that's what people want to see, right?
Real life.
So, I guess I'm curious, Will. You haven't been eating chocolate because I know that's part of your thing when you're tapering, or at least 6 weeks out from your important race, you stop eating chocolate.
Yeah.
So when you were here and we were working on our training platforms, you just wouldn't eat junk food.
Yeah.
So, that was a couple weeks ago. So you are getting to the tail end where you can start eating chocolate, and I assume that'll be after the race, right?
Yeah.
But
yeah,
this
that's
week
right.
You're doing something special, and you're tapering for an event, which we
tapering.
only do a couple times a year. Tapering, there's a lot of things going on when we taper. We don't do it for every event. We do it for key events. Do you just want to kind of tell us about how your taper's been going?
Yes. I guess it's kind of modified itself because at 6...
Can we rewind, actually? Should we define what tapering is?
Sure.
And why we do it?
All right. So it's a progressive reduction in training load leading into a key event to increase recovery time and minimize fatigue. How's that?
That's a pretty good way to put it. So you stressed there that a voluntary reduction in training load.
Yes.
Right? Reduction in load, which we can measure in multiple different ways. And what that does is that you're able to recover from all the previous training, and you get a stronger adaptation by removing any fatigue.
That's right.
Right, because you don't want to race with fatigue. Like if you continue training into your important event, how do you think that would go?
Well, I've done it, and it doesn't go well.
Why is that? Why doesn't it go as well?
Well, what has happened to me in the past, and I'm sure people can relate, you get through the meat of your training. You know, I have this race. I either need to get super fit for ultra endurance or, 4-hour plus races, or I need to get super fast for a 5K or a 10K half marathon kind of thing. So you work really hard at whatever aspect you're trying to focus on, and it all goes really well. And then you think, well, I can't, if I do less, surely I'm going to lose everything. I'll just keep on pushing the boat out a little bit, and you do a little bit less because you probably won't do your long weekend exercise, whatever that is. You can't do that, but then maybe you just do something a bit harder. It's supposed to be pretty easy, but I'll just make sure I'm still fit. Just need to keep testing myself. I know this is a easy swim, but I'll just bang in a couple 100 meters and a 400 time trial, just to make sure I'm okay. Then you get to the race, and the start of the race is probably all right, but it's once you get through, especially in endurance, we're going to be exercising over an hour. You start to get over that hour and a half, especially 2 hours, and you go, oh man, I'm just not there. That's the fatigue. That is the fatigue you just didn't notice as you were tapering off on the distance or the duration of your training, and you're like, I shouldn't have done as much.
So you realize it kind of maybe 5 minutes into the race to 2 hours into the race. You're like, yeah, you start thinking about all the things that you could have done better.
Yeah, and there's a saying, a taper is like a bad haircut. You don't know you've had one until it's over. Yeah, I think that's how it goes. Do you get what I'm saying? I think I butchered it.
No, I'm just thinking about all the bad haircuts I've had.
Yeah, but until it's over,
there's a lot
right?
of them.
Like, in terms of, if you listen back to some of our beginning episodes just before my Rotorua Marathon, that was the first block of my racing, my taper, and every single thing went well in my training. Everything. And the taper just didn't work. I had done too much previously, and I didn't taper hard enough. I don't know if you can say that. I didn't reduce my volume enough. I did push one of my sessions way too hard when I should have just not even done it. Maybe even had the day off. And in the end, that whole process of what I just talked about happened. I was like feeling fine, and then after probably 2 hours, I had nothing. Like, there was the fatigue in my legs, and I've noticed this. The super hard one is ultra endurance, like I have coming up, because you have to exercise for so long. 10 hours of running, and I've done 300Ks, 85K, and 65. And the less I do in the 2 weeks leading up, or even the month really, three weeks to a month leading in, the better I handle the final sort of 30Ks of the race. Like last year I did the adventure race in China, 4-day adventure race, and pretty much did nothing for the, 2 weeks almost before the 100Ks, and was flying. Like, I was flying up until that point, like that 70 odd Ks, and I was like, oh man, I know I feel good. Like, mentally I was able to push as hard as I could, but I didn't have, that's where you notice fatigue.
Yeah, sure. So like what's happening when you're training is, as you train and you kind of stack workouts day to day, week to week, month to month, you get more fit, right? Which is exactly why we do training. But as we continue to stack this training, we actually start to build fatigue. And you can't build fitness without building fatigue. They kind of go hand in hand. You need to get a little bit tired to actually get a little bit more fit. At a certain point, there's this crossover where you've either done too much and need to have a rest, or maybe you haven't done enough. But what we try to do as coaches is to time it perfectly, so that way you're getting tired at just the right time, which means we get as much fitness as we can. And then a few weeks before the event, what we do is we take away all the stimulus and instead of all your fitness going away, what happens is what we really want, which is all our fatigue to go away. Because if you race fatigued, it's not nice. If you race fresh with no fatigue, that's when you get your best performances. And you feel your best, which is probably one of the most important things. So you saying that you did nothing for the 2 weeks before, that's a hard sell a lot of the times.
Man, after everything's gone so well, it's like easy training. It's like putting a heart rate monitor on and going, that can't be right. Like, surely training this easy is not going to make me faster in any concept of the term, you know?
It's like a good haircut. You don't realize it until you've done it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So you do it right, and eventually you see, like, wow, this works. Like, tapering actually really works. And for a lot of people, and this is where athletes fall into a trap, is they get to the 2 weeks before and they think, I haven't done enough training. I need to do some training in these 2 weeks so I can do really well in this event. And all that does is add fatigue, and it makes the performance actually worse.
It does. And
so that's what you're not doing.
Yeah, and it has been very hard. It is especially hard because I had my Achilles injury from, I guess it was about 6 weeks-ish to 4 weeks out, or 5 to 3. And that's generally the super hardcore training for me. That's where I have built up over the months of training. I built up for an ultra race especially, to a certain level where I can train a very large volume, and I will just run as much as I can, while including some higher intensity stuff to keep the speed and efficiency in there. But pretty much I'll do that, and that gives me a lot of confidence for the final 3 weeks to just run off of feel, you know, to just do what I need to do. Go for a mountain bike if I feel like it. Go for a bit of a swim, sleep in, skip a session. It's like, yeah, well, I did that. So I missed that. And it was like, oh man, now I feel like I'm going to do nothing for 5 weeks. And what I was able to do was concentrate on my diet and everything that went around a good performance. And that led me to getting back into, fixing my Achilles, getting back into like a good couple of weeks of training, not overdoing it. You know, beforehand I was running 120 Ks a week. The last couple of weeks of training I was able to get in were more like 70 or 80 Ks a week. So quite a large reduction, but I got in, a long run. So I could tick that box, 4 hours, not like the sort of 5 to 6 hours I was going to do, and it was a bit easier. And then now, when I want to do more, I've had one thing on my mind, and that is racing well. Previously, when I've fixated on a performance or a time, I know where I need to be to get to a certain time or result. If I want to get a top 10 at a big race, I need to be running, 3-minute 30Ks for a 10K without any effort, or I need to be doing at least 120 Ks because these guys are doing 100 miles a week, 160 Ks. Like, I need to be at all these different levels to compete with all these different people in the clock. Whereas if I want to race well, and I want to race for myself, and I want to get to the end of a race and be like, damn, that was everything I could have wanted out of myself, I need to focus on what is going to get me to the start line and through the race in the best possible position. And that has helped me a lot to do a lot less training than I otherwise would.
Okay, that's interesting, because that's some of the things that I talk about with my athletes as well. And because it's not like you're unfit. You've been training for years and months. It's not like suddenly by doing slightly less training and having an injury or whatever that you've actually gotten worse, right? And the worst thing you could do is go into this race with a little bit of fatigue and want more out of it. That's just the worst thing. That's just the worst feeling ever. Just feeling like you can't give it everything. And that's where a taper is really good, because that fatigue is just gone and you can give it everything.
Yeah. And that's where we need to be as endurance athletes. Like, it is a selfish sport, and we do, as much as we want to do it for everyone around us, and they do enjoy seeing us succeed and enjoy it, it is to get your personal fulfillment out of pushing your own physical and mental capabilities to their limit. And like what happened last year in the 100Ks that I did, I came third and did my best ever time, and I was disappointed at the finish. And I do not want that to I do not want to run a 100K.
Why were you disappointed though?
Well, I did 9 hours 17, and I wanted to do under 9 hours. And I was in second place, and I got overtaken over the last part into third, and it was all kind of like, I wasn't focusing on what I wanted to get out of. I wanted a result and a time and an outcome. So, despite it being everything I could have wanted, especially in the conditions leading into it, like I'd been to China, missed a flight, bought a new house, my car broke down, like considering everything that went on.
You mean so life got in the way?
Yeah.
Yeah. Right? That's standard.
I know, and same with this Achilles injury. Like, it never works out. It never goes well. But I stayed focused on like this outcome that was just completely arbitrary, and so there I am, like having run my best ever race over 100 kilometers, and I'm like upset. I do not want to feel like that again. Like, I was proud for sure, and happy to have completed it, but in the back of my mind, I was like, well, you didn't even do what you set out to do. So,
so do you think, by focusing on your training and getting that dialed and focusing on that as your goal, do you think like you've already, feel like you got what you needed out of it in a way?
Out of what?
Out of, the whole thing that you're doing, your training and your racing. Do you feel like you have maybe a small victory just by doing everything right along the way?
Yes, 100%. Like, last night I weighed myself, because that's sort of, I want to race at a certain weight, and I know just eating well.
No chocolate.
Yeah. And for me, I weighed 73.7 kgs, which is pretty much the lightest I've ever been. Like, and my weight range has shifted into the racing weight, 74 to 76 kgs, a little bit lighter last night, and I feel amazing. I'm running well, and it's like, this is it. Like, I don't even need to do anything more. I've won.
Yeah.
So
the
now
boys are on.
Now I get to do the race. I get to find out what it is that is going to slow me down. Like, how fast can I go? I don't know. I'm not going to put any limits on it. I'm just going to set out my sort of parameters for having a good race. Nutrition, spend all that added extra time that I would normally spend training or being super tired, on figuring out, what's available at each aid station, what's the weather going to be like, what kit do I need. You can check that video out. And everything like that, and it's just got me so excited to find out what I've got, rather than sort of dreading the challenge I've set for myself when you have an outcome driven sort of expectation and just continuously second guessing yourself. Like, if you have no outcome, all you want is to get the best out of yourself, you kind of can't lose.
Yeah, that's really true. So, like you were saying, you have a video, and that's all the stuff that you're going to be using?
Yeah.
Like all the gear that you're going to have?
Yeah. Okay,
so do you ever include like the gear that you're going to use as part of your taper? And I guess the way I think of it is, for mountain bikers, there's a lot of things to think about with your gear. And since you take away some of the training before the event, you actually suddenly have time to think about the gear that you're going to use and get it in order. That way you're not just adding something really stressful to your life. Do you start to get all that stuff together during your taper? Like, is that a good time for you?
Yeah, so in the weekend I did a full test run. So you listened to last episode, I'm doing the run walk, and
Oh yeah,
I went on a similar kind of course, which is flat for this race, full kit. So I got all my compulsory gear, everything I was going to use, and the sort of race power that I was looking at, holding for, and I just went out and tried to just did it, and weighed myself before and after is so interesting. Like of all my kit with a full hydration pack, which I'll be taking, was an extra 3.5 kgs. And one of the big things I noticed was how much harder it was to run at a pace I kind of thought I might be able to do. And I talked about it with my wife. I was like, I need to get away from this pace-based thing, because if there's a headwind, if it's super wet, if it's soft underfoot, that all contributes to you slowing down. And that was the case. Like, it was windy and wet when I did this run, and cold, and I could feel myself losing quite a bit of energy just battling the cold. It was so cold, and it was just raining the whole time. But I wore all of my kit, and so it gave me a good indication. Like at this power output, which I know I can maintain through modeling it, I'm not going to be running anywhere near what I thought I was. So that confirms I need to forget about that, and also, it's just was able to make sure I had everything. And doing that video with all of my stuff was really good, because now it's pretty much packed up.
There you go. You're sorted.
Yeah, but I always work on that with myself. There's something I learned on the first 100Ks where I never really knew like what it was all about. Drop bags, different shoes, different socks, like depending on... And I was up until 10 p.m. the night before just trying to sort everything out. And now I do it the weekend before. So it's like, well, do I have enough gels? That first one, I didn't even know. I was like, I need a beanie. I don't have one. So I had to go down to the sports department store and buy it. I just was moving the whole entire day. Registration, getting my food, cooking lunch. Like, it just is never ending. And now, like, it's just experience, right? And it really helps pass that on to athletes I work with. It's like, here's a ridiculous list of things you haven't considered yet.
Yeah, sure. So in terms of like what you actually are doing for the taper, could you maybe give us a rundown of some of the maybe 3 things that you find super helpful? Not giving away your tapering training plan, right? But giving away, 3 really important tips that you find work for everyone.
Number 1 for me is to keep the structure of your week. So most people are training Monday to Sunday and they have a general structure. Maybe it's swimming on Tuesdays and Thursdays and Saturday, and biking on Wednesday, or going to the track on Tuesday, all of that kind of thing. I try and keep that the same. So there's nothing really that new. It's just I start to reduce the overall volume, duration, generally, of the sessions. Whatever you were doing, if it was 90 minutes, it's probably going to be like 2 weeks out, 60 minutes, and then 45 minutes. If that was like what you did, whatever run or bike ride you did. And I'll put in additional rest days. Most people are going to have 1 day off per week, unless you're a triathlete and then you just train all the time. And so I'll put in, another rest day. So trying to get across a 2-week span leading into the event 4 rest days.
Okay. That's not crazy. Like, that's not a crazy amount for someone who's like thinking they're going to have to just put their feet up all day, every day. 4 rest days in 2 weeks is maybe not too far from what people are doing already.
Yeah. And, well, I'm thinking that's definitely me in my head. You know,
Yeah,
for
sure,
someone
but that's
who's,
good because it kind of shows that you're not doing nothing. You're not doing absolutely nothing. You're just adding in slightly more rest than normal. So
yeah,
it's not like
like
you're
if
totally changing your
you're
life.
training 3 days a week, I'm not changing that at all.
Yeah.
I'm just changing the duration of it.
Yeah.
And I like to make a couple sessions a bit more exciting. So I always do a hard session a week, interval-based session of whatever I need to focus on in relation to my event. So I keep that around an hour session with hard efforts, and that's on a Tuesday. And that's something that is always there, so that stays there. They won't be monster sessions like they potentially were in the weeks leading up to that. They're not going to be 2-hour sessions or anything like that. 1 hour. Then I'll also make another session a bit more exciting. So where you might have been doing a 2-hour bike ride, right? That's going to be a 1-hour bike ride now, but it's going to have some kind of exciting element to it that lets you know you're ready for a race, but it's also not that taxing. So, doing 5 1-minute efforts on the bike within an hour with 5 minutes rest. And
okay, so full recoveries.
Full recoveries, and they're not all out efforts. They're not 1-minute PBs. It's like, depending on what race power you're doing, it might be at FTP. So FTP, functional threshold power or critical power, is something you can maintain for half an hour to an hour. So to do that for 1 minute, it just feels pretty cool. It feels like you're livening yourself up. And then for running, there's a session we did it last week with an athlete. I work with 2020s, so 15 2020s. It takes 10 minutes, 20 seconds hard, 20 seconds easy. You just you're continuously sprinting and slowing down, sprinting. You never get to a full sprint, and then you never get to like a full-on like recovery, like, oh, I'm getting ready for the next session. It's just a continuous run, and it just excites you for 30 minutes. And then in the weekends, that's the meat. That's where you're banging out 3-5 hour sessions. They're now like 90 minutes.
I see. So totally chopping those down by a lot.
Huge. Like that's because our fitness, right? They're your fitness and conditioning, which you don't need anymore. That's done.
You're already fit. You need to just get rid of the fatigue, and doing more of those are just going to make you more fatigued.
And
it'll be like nothing changed.
And for most people, that's really enjoyable part of the taper. It's like, oh my God, I have my weekend back.
Yeah,
I can get up at 7 a.m., do 90 minutes rather than 5 hours, and this feels like I have my whole day to actually chill out and recover. Whereas the midweek stuff, if you start cutting that out, like putting heaps of recovery days or making 15 minutes instead of 1 hour, or not including those harder sessions, I find, so a lot of it is pretty mental, besides the specific session you'll do in relation to your event. It's mental, and it's like, you want to have it look like there's a lot. So if you're writing a training plan, I'll generally, add in a session like a massage or yoga.
Oh, yeah.
So like bulks, like if you're doing 2 a days and I'm going to cut you down to 1 a days for most of the time, or combined sessions, like for triathlon, it's going to be a bricks, like a bike run. Whereas normally you did a bike and then a run in the afternoon, and you make it that brick, but then you have like swim bands or stretch cords. It's like, yeah, that's what I do.
Okay, yeah. So, yeah, just filling your time and not just doing nothing, because then you're liable to maybe do something you shouldn't.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. So, how often are you going to taper in the year? Because I think this is an important part, because when I'm working with athletes, and especially young athletes, every event is the World Championships. And this is tricky because, when we're tapering, we're taking away a lot of the volume in our training, which is good because then we know we're taking away the fatigue. But if we do that, 6 times or 7 times in a year, what that actually means is we spent suddenly 14 weeks of not really doing much, which means we, in a way, had 14 weeks where we didn't really train. So when I look at it and I'm working with an athlete, we try and pinpoint just, 3 times a year to peak, maybe at the most, and, maybe for a couple weeks at a time. Do you kind of follow the same kind of thing with runners and triathletes?
Yeah.
Like, we don't want to peak too many times?
Yeah. 3 is the absolute max. Generally, it'll be 2. There'll be recovery. I would consider it more of a recovery week leading into a race. That's less important. So if you're running or racing sprint triathlons, 10Ks, maybe even a half marathon, so you're looking at that 1 hour, an hour and a half or less, maybe even up to 2 hours, you can afford probably 3 blocks because the actual racing is not as taxing. But when we're looking at these 4-hour plus events, you just need so much training. If you want to race to your potential, you need to be really well conditioned to last that duration. So I'll have 2 main racing blocks that we will taper into, and that will be like multiple races within a month or 6 weeks even. So you sort of do the meat of your training, and then we will maybe include less volume, more intensity, and then from there, and that'll include some races, and then from there you'll like get into your big race or big race block. Otherwise, I try to develop a plan that sits around people's lead-in races. So you'll have your big race, but you're always going to have some other kind of race leading into that to check everything off. So that will be a recovery week leading into it, and then a recovery few days afterwards before. So I situate it within the divide of the macro cycle.
Yeah, sure.
I guess
that way you're not going to be like totally ruined like you are at the end of a block, and you can still race pretty good. Like, not just because you don't taper into an event doesn't mean you're going to absolutely suck.
No, sometimes it's like
really
randomly incredible.
Yeah. And that happens a lot. I like to situate them within a training block, like an early part of a training block, because, when you're 2 weeks into a training block, you feel really good.
Yeah.
Like, just got done with a rest. You've been doing maybe a bit of intensity, some long rides. You feel amazing. So, and you're not overly fatigued. So it's a really good time to do it. And the performances aren't that bad. Peaking for an event only makes your performance a little bit better. Just a little bit. And it's hard to put a number on that, but we just can't do it all the time.
Yeah. It's also, again, it becomes mental as well. Like if you just train consistently, 5 days a week, 8 hours, 10 hours a week, every single week, with no specific build or taper or recovery, it becomes mentally draining to do something like that. And yeah, the tapering it allows you to, well, hopefully, gain that excitement for the event, start to feel better, start to concentrate your additional time on everything that surrounds the event and your performance. So you are getting there, and as endurance athletes, we won't notice that we have that fatigue, but if we continue to train, like I said, it's 2 hours plus, you go, damn, there it is.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty funny because Training Peaks shows us all these performance management charts, and we know as coaches that they're not the end-all be-all, but they tell the story pretty good in saying when you're really tired and when you're really unfit. So I was looking at my performance management chart after my time away, and I was gone for about 8 days, and I'd had a long commute every day. It was about 35 Ks. I did that every day to commute to the show. But it was a really low training stress score. So what it did to my performance management chart is it shows that I'm incredibly unfit right now. Like the lowest I've been since I started using my power meter every day. Maybe I started that up again about 1.5 years ago. It just shows how unfit I am. So I'm really interested to see, because I know that's not how fitness works. I know I didn't just lose everything in 10 days. So we have a club race this weekend, and it's the finals, and I'm actually looking forward to seeing how that goes. And seeing actually how low is my performance now. Because it's not a taper, and it's just life got in the way. So yeah, let's see what happened.
Yeah, that's the same as when I got injured and I ran a couple times in 2 weeks, and your Garmin watch will tell you the same thing: productive, unproductive. It came up unproductive. Like my training is not unproductive.
Yeah,
and it is super hard to try and weed through that kind of thing where you're already hard on yourself because you're not doing your structured training, and then you get these like so-called smart devices telling you, yeah, you are unfit, and you're only going to get more unfit.
Yeah,
and
your life is over.
Yeah, Jim Miles. Yeah, make sure
Just
you do more.
Like, yeah. Of course, because there are big events coming up, so you need to do more.
Yeah. So all right. So if we wrap up with the 3 things for the taper, one is to keep your structure and reduce the overall training load, predominantly through volume or duration. Okay. Right. So that would be. So number 2 would be to focus on your performance. Like your goal is to race to your potential, to get everything out of yourself mentally and physically. That needs to be from 2 weeks out. Like that is what needs to be written on the fridge or your bathroom mirror. Like, that's right. I'm tired today and I want to race well in another 10 days. Like, I'm not going to run today. I'm not going to go to the pool today. I'm going to sleep in. Yeah. Number 3 is to concentrate on everything else you can do well over this 2 week. Get your gear ready. Look at the course profile. Figure out a pacing strategy. Stretch. Get a massage. Find advice. Book hotels. Figure out your travel arrangements. Everything so that when you can get there, it's like stress-free. All your energy is just concentrated on ticking boxes. That's what I like to call it. Like, we can get to the start line and just go, all right, I've got to swim. First buoy is 200 meters away. I'm going to settle into my pace, get out of the swim, got my bike, first uphill. Like, it's just
get it all dialed.
You're just ticking boxes to get yourself in the best possible position. So those are the 3 things. Keep the structure, reduce the overall volume. Remember that you are trying to race well, and do everything to put yourself in the best possible position on start line race day.
Simple as that. I like it.
It's that easy. All right, Matt. Catch you after the race.
Yeah, sweet. I'll look forward to it.
All right, Matt. See ya.